The crowd at the county livestock auction barely tried to hide their laughter. Dust swirled in the late afternoon heat as ranchers leaned against wooden rails, cowboy hats tipped low, boots scraping against the concrete floor. The auctioneer's voice echoed through the tin-roofed barn, bouncing off rusted beams and tired faces. Most of the animals that day were strong, muscular steers or lean dairy cows ready for production. Buyers nodded confidently, raising paddles without hesitation. And then she walked in. Or rather, she waddled. The gate creaked open, and the heaviest cow anyone had seen in years shuffled awkwardly into the ring. Her sides sagged. Her breathing was heavy. Her coat, once probably glossy, looked dull and matted. She wasn't muscular. She wasn't fit. She wasn't impressive. "She's too fat," someone shouted from the bleachers. Laughter erupted. Another rancher leaned over the railing. "That one's headed straight for the slaughterhouse." Even the auctioneer hesitated before reading the tag. Lot 47, older dairy cow, overconditioned. That was the polite way of saying overweight. Near the back of the barn stood a man nobody paid much attention to, Eli Turner. His boots were cracked. His jeans were patched at both knees. His hat had faded from black to gray after years under the Texas sun. His ranch, just 20 acres on the edge of town, was barely surviving. Drought had hit hard. Feed prices had doubled. 2 of his calves had died the previous winter. Most days, Eli wondered how much longer he could hold on. He hadn't come to the auction to make a big purchase. He barely had enough cash to buy feed for the week. But when he saw the cow, mocked and dismissed before the bidding even began, something shifted in his chest. The auctioneer started low. "Who'll give 300? Silence. 200. Snickers. 150. More laughter. Someone shouted. "You'll have to pay me to take her." The cow stood there, head lowered, tail flicking nervously. Her eyes, dark, wide, uncertain, moved across the crowd as if searching for something. Or someone. Eli raised his paddle. The sound of the wood slapping against his palm echoed louder than the auctioneer's microphone. The barn went quiet. "150 from the gentleman in the back," the auctioneer announced, surprised. A few ranchers turned around. "Eli," one whispered. "He can't even afford hay." No one else bid. "Sold." The gavel hit. Just like that, Eli had spent nearly the last of his savings on the one animal everyone else considered worthless. As he led her toward his trailer, the whispers followed him. "He's lost his mind. Too soft-hearted to be a rancher. That cow's nothing but a liability." Eli didn't respond. He tied the rope gently, careful not to rush her. Up close, he noticed something the others hadn't cared to see. Her hooves were cracked from standing too long on hard ground. Her udder was swollen, not just from weight, but from neglect. And around her neck was a faint indentation, like she'd worn a rope too tight for too long. He placed his hand on her shoulder. "It's all right, girl," he whispered. "You're coming home." The drive back to his ranch was slow. His old pickup rattled over dirt roads, engine coughing at every incline. When they arrived, the sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the sky orange and purple. His ranch wasn't much: weathered fencing, a small barn with peeling paint, and a modest farmhouse that leaned slightly to one side. But it was quiet, peaceful. He led her into a shaded pen and filled a trough with clean water. She drank deeply, as if she hadn't tasted fresh water in days. He laid out fresh hay, softer than what she'd probably been given before. That night, Eli sat on the wooden fence outside her pen long after dark. He didn't see a too-fat cow. He saw an animal who'd been overfed cheap grain and underexercised. He saw swollen joints. He saw stress. He saw neglect disguised as indulgence. And he saw potential. The next morning, Eli woke before sunrise. He didn't pour extra feed into her trough. Instead, he measured carefully, cutting back slowly, switching to higher quality hay. He walked her gently around the pasture, letting her stretch stiff legs. At first, she resisted. Her breathing was labored. She stopped often. He never pulled. He waited. Every day, they walked a little farther. The townspeople found out quickly about Eli's purchase. Word spread faster than wildfire in a small town. At the feed store, conversations stopped when he entered. "You still got that walking meatball?" someone joked. Eli just paid for his supplies and left. Weeks passed. The change was slow, almost invisible at first. The swelling around her legs decreased. Her breathing steadied. Her coat began to regain a soft shine. She started lifting her head higher when Eli approached. And then one morning, something happened that made Eli pause. He opened the barn door to find her not lying down sluggishly, but standing at the gate, waiting for him. He clipped the rope to her halter and began their walk. She moved with more confidence now, not graceful yet, but determined. He started calling her Hope, because that's what she had become. By the third month, the difference was undeniable. She had slimmed down significantly, not skinny, but healthy. Muscle replaced excess weight. Her eyes looked brighter. Her steps were steady. Then came the surprise that changed everything. One afternoon, while checking on her, Eli noticed she seemed restless. She paced. She shifted her weight. A memory surfaced, something he'd overheard at the auction but hadn't paid attention to. She might be bred, someone had muttered dismissively. His heart pounded. That night, under a sky filled with stars, Hope went into labor. Eli stayed by her side the entire time. He whispered encouragement. He wiped sweat from her hide. He steadied her when contractions shook her body. Hours later, a small calf slid onto the straw. But this calf wasn't weak. It was strong, solid, beautiful. Hope nudged her baby gently, licking it clean. The calf struggled to its feet faster than Eli had ever seen. Tears filled his eyes. The cow everyone had mocked had carried life. And not just life, strength. News spread again. This time, it wasn't laughter. Curious townspeople drove out to see for themselves. They expected to find the same overweight animal from months ago. Instead, they found a healthy cow standing protectively beside a robust calf, her coat shining in the sun. "What did you do?" one rancher asked quietly. Eli shrugged. "I gave her a chance." The calf grew quickly. Strong genetics began to show. A local veterinarian, impressed by the calf's build, mentioned something that stunned everyone. The bloodline traced back to a prized dairy producer from years ago, sold off cheaply after changing ownership. Hope had never been worthless. She had simply been mishandled. By the following year, Hope was producing high-quality milk again, more than Eli had expected. The calf matured into one of the finest young bulls the county had seen. Buyers who once laughed now offered prices triple what Eli had paid. He refused to sell. Not yet. At the next county auction, Eli returned, not as the struggling rancher people pitted, but as a man walking beside a strong young bull that turned heads instantly. The auctioneer's voice rang louder this time. Starting bid at $2,000. Hands shot up. The same men who once laughed now competed fiercely. When the gavel finally slammed down, the price had climbed higher than anyone predicted, higher than Eli had ever imagined. But that wasn't what made the town cry. After the sale, Eli stood up on the trailer and addressed the crowd. "A year ago," he began, voice steady but thick with emotion, "you all laughed at this animal's mother. Said she was too fat. Useless. A waste." Silence fell. She wasn't useless. She was neglected. There's a difference. He paused, looking at faces now lowered in reflection. Sometimes, what looks like failure is just potential waiting for care. Even the auctioneer wiped his eyes. Because in that moment, it wasn't about cattle. It was about people. About second chances. About not judging worth at first glance. Hope remained on Eli's ranch, grazing peacefully under wide Texas skies. She had become more than livestock. She was a reminder carved into the soul of a small town that compassion, patience, and belief can transform what others discard. The struggling rancher who could barely afford feed had taken a risk on something no one else wanted. And in doing so, he didn't just save a cow. He restored faith in an entire community. And every time someone drove past his modest ranch and saw Hope standing tall in the pasture, they remembered the day they laughed and the day they cried.